So let's start the show off. We've got Dr. Nicola Bird here, and she's got a book, The Boomerang Effect, How You Can Take Charge of Your Life. And Nicola is here at the table. And Nicola, welcome to Liquid Lunch.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Hello. It doesn't look like you're very snow tired.
No, absolutely not. It wasn't that much snow, and I believe that we keep warmth in our heart. So,
That's a beautiful, beautiful.
so I try to focus there and think of sunshine, and then it really makes a difference. Because otherwise, if you keep snow in your mind, you get really bogged down in the cold.
Well, that makes sense actually. If you're talking about something called the boomerang effect.
Yes.
Right? So if you put that out there, you get that back, right?
Absolutely, because then you're focusing on what you are perceiving as unpleasant. So, like, if I walk out in a winter morning and it's crisp and fresh, there's something really beautiful about crisp, fresh air.
Yes,
That
that's
is
true.
really,
That's true.
It's really pure. I always find them beautiful mornings.
Now, Nicola, or do I?
I think he's going. Sounds like get real, Nicola.
Well, because that sounds like a really good attitude, and I know that besides writing the book,
But
you have created something called self-imaging therapy, and I'm wondering if this great attitude that you have is something that you had to, at one time had to work at to bring into your life, and maybe it was part of the process of identifying or figuring this self-imaging therapy out.
Great question, and you're absolutely right that you're saying that my outlook is something I've worked on, but I think that is something I always have to work on, and we all have to spend time, like, as a discipline, really training our mind or training our thoughts or training our emotions, because you can't just say, I ate lettuce in 1985 and I'm healthy. You can't say, oh, look at you.
see, that's done now. You're done. No more.
I ate lettuce like more recently than that.
Does that count?
To be healthy or to be getting your nutrients, it's a practice. It's a daily discipline that you take care of yourself. So if you're feeding yourself junk, what's the outcome? Same thing. If you're feeding yourself mentally and emotionally things that really bog you down, you're going to be stuck in those places. So yes, I have worked on it. I do work on it. I don't arrive. And I definitely make it a discipline in my life to really be mindful of myself and observe myself. And my work is a big part of being able to achieve that.
What do you mean?
Well, the work that I do, my self-imaging therapy, it helps me maintain my ability to be aware of myself and create change. And then that work, I translate it into work that I do with other people.
So I
in
guess
other words, you are taking your own therapy and using it yourself. You're taking your own medicine.
Well, I don't believe that we can really practice something or preach something that we don't practice.
Right.
Yeah.
That we have to be able to identify and actually be part of that. So if I haven't myself built that understanding or realize this, then it would be really hard for me to be really effective in my work. I think that I would be a whole lot less effective.
Yeah.
And that I live by what I do.
Okay.
So
Cool.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
It sounds to me when you're talking about this discipline, it sounds to me like this is about choice.
it is about choice, but you notice that I hesitated.
Yes.
Because
Where does that start? And
it's the reason I hesitate is because it's really easy for people to blame themselves for things patterns that they have learned. And in my work, I see that all the time, that people beat themselves up, criticize themselves, and blame themselves. A blaming mind is very common for human behavior.
I try to blame other people as much as possible, Nicola.
But you see,
it's very effective.
The problem is the blaming mind tends to turn back on itself.
That's
So
the
you-
boomerang.
Is that the boomerang?
That's the
Yes.
boomerang.
So if you blame other people because you're thinking from a blaming perspective, it will turn back on you as a lens that you look at yourself and you go, and you start nitpicking and beating yourself and being really unkind.
Oh.
I think we can learn to make really healthy choices for ourselves, and it is a choice to go forward and work on bettering ourselves, looking at ourselves, reflecting on ourselves in a healthy manner. But if you have patterns of behavior, and that's the boomerang effect, and maybe I can explain that. The boomerang is when things repeat themselves in the same pattern. So you're stuck in the same thoughts, the same emotions, or the same relationships, or you notice the same things keep reoccurring. So when you get stuck in the same kind of pattern, then you need to become self-aware to change that. And something that you've learned is running the show, and that you need to really get on board with and create change. So the choices, the work or the effort that you put into doing something about the problem, but if you're stuck in a problem, after a while, if you've learned something, it becomes like your brain function in a certain way, then it's not so much about choice, it's become habitual, but then your choice is to create the change. And I like to make that difference so that it helps people to change their beating, their self-beating or their critical mind. And how I phrase it, it's not your fault that you've learned something, but you can now change it so that you can kind of be aware, okay, these things, these sequence of events happened in my life, and now I'm here struggling with these thoughts, these feelings, anxieties, fears, et cetera, that are causing problems, but now I can do something about it, and that's where the choice comes in.
So then is it fair to say, okay, it's not your fault because you were unconscious,
Yes.
but now you have the choice because you're becoming conscious?
That's right, and it's your
Okay.
choice to keep becoming conscious,
Okay.
which can be very scary, which is where my work comes in.
Okay. Do you have a question? Because I have a question if you don't.
Well, so now you're not a psychiatrist,
No,
right?
I'm a psychotherapist.
A psychotherapist. So
Yes.
because some people have talked about that psychiatry
Right.
is dead because today all those therapies are they're
Psychotherapy?
Psychiatry?
psychiatrists
Right.
really all they do these days is prescribe drugs now, pretty much. That any kind of alternative treatments that they might have employed before, they're no longer using today. It's all drugs with
Psychology.
psychiatrists. So,
Okay.
but it sounds like what you're doing is sounds like you have an effective actual therapy that's an alternative to drugs.
Yes, it is. Now, I don't like to get myself set up one against the other,
Yeah.
for one thing, because everything has its place and position. So when I'm doing, then you come to me. So, yes, I don't prescribe drugs, and my work is about dealing with the root of the problem, getting to the root, dealing with not with the effect, but the source. And really going deep into what has the base of it and how you can create change at a deep level. It is inner work. It definitely is very empowering for the person, and it is designed to create change and effect holistically, mind, body, and to get the person to not just see themselves, but see how they can change. And so it's like, in that way, like I said, it's very empowering, and it is reconstructive. So you challenge yourself at the base and then create change. So it is designed, as you said, to really answer those what traditional drugs cannot meet. Absolutely.
So is it in the same, because there's psychiatrists, there's psychologists,
Yes.
and there's psychotherapists.
Yes.
So I know from your explanation what you said, where
Right.
psychiatrists are, I would say, are on this side.
Right.
Are psychologists in the middle and psychotherapists on this side, or is there a crossover? I'm not sure where those
Yeah, no,
two...
it's a very good question. You know, psychiatrists come from a medical model, so they've gone through the medical model, and they've then learned, treatments. And in terms of, yes, they mostly would be more biochemically based.
Right.
Psychologists are not like going through a medical discipline, and then like a psychiatrist then become specialized in psychiatry, but they could go into other fields of medicine as well. So that's their field of medicine, the mind. A psychologist isn't coming from a medical model. A psychologist goes through a specific type of training, and then you come out with a psychology degree.
Like Bob Newhart.
And then,
Isn't he a psychiatrist? No, he's a psychologist.
and then
This is
a
funny.
psychotherapist will be, social workers would be considered psychotherapists, for instance,
Okay.
things like that.
So it's more talk.
No, I mean, it's in any field, by the way, anyone
Okay.
can then decide how they're going to pursue their discipline.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking is, how would I know if I want to see somebody? How would I know if I want to see? I have a clear definition of a psychiatrist. Okay, so
Yes.
I don't want to biochemically treat my body. Okay, I want to look at the core, not the symptoms. How do I know if I should be going to a psychologist or a psychotherapist?
Well, you'd really want to look at how they're how they are treating, and everyone will have a
Okay.
different model.
Okay.
It's not. There are so many.
see.
Like
Okay.
somebody
Okay.
might be like the most traditional right now, or a lot of very commonly placed approaches is, which you'll hear a lot of people talk about all the time. You'll hear about like cognitive behavioral therapy. Psychiatrists will use that too. That's
Okay.
very.
Okay.
That's very. It's pretty across the board. For
Yes,
instance.
I've heard of that as a
And
therapy.
like anyone can learn it nearly, so to speak. Nurses will practice it, for instance, things like
Okay.
that. So,
Okay.
so you have, so it's me, and I just threw out one that's very well known and very well established. So then you're just looking at how do they treat you? What is their methodology? And so there's a lot of mindfulness is now in the discourse. There's a lot of things now being included. It just depends on where a person is coming from, what their study has been, and what their orientation is. So it does become quite specific, actually. So those are the questions a person can ask when they're investigating.
Makes sense. You have a question? I have a question if you don't.
Go.
Okay. The
Not that I don't,
Okay.
but go.
Boomerang Effect.
Yes.
The name of the book. Is this something like, I think what comes to mind for me and probably a lot of people are when you say what you get out, you get back, I think about law of attraction.
Right. No, it doesn't go
Okay.
into that. It comes from my work, self-imaging therapy, and like I said, self-imaging therapy is a very internal process.
Okay.
So you asked me a little earlier, if I backtrack just a little bit to the earlier question when you said, is my attitude coming from my work? And my work comes from me, and that's true. I started developing this work nearly over 20 years ago, and I had been, always into personal growth, personal development, always into that. And I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. And when my marriage failed at the time, and I hadn't gotten the results that I wanted, and I was so longing to, I want change, and I was doing everything. I was doing meditation, I was going for treatment, I was doing all kind of things. And I still wasn't the old patterns were still running the show. I wanted to get deeper into the parts of myself and create that change. And that's how I developed my work. And from there, the process got developed. I started implementing it with other people, and the work was born. It created so much change for me, and then my system was born. So I have the privilege from doing my work, which I feel very honored to have, that I get the insight into people inside themselves, because the work is like an inner journey, like watching a movie of yourself, where you, like I said, you go into the core of the problem and reconstruct. So I have a lot of privilege of seeing deep into the psyche. And so that has taught me and helped me see that we all have the same kind of patterns, and that create our problems. We all respond in the same ways to things, and that's where this comes from. So the boomerang effect is how we get stuck, and the patterns of behavior that I consistently see as people's reactions or response, their coping styles that are unhealthy, no matter what your conditioning is. And it's dealing with those, because everybody thinks they want change, but these are what get in the way.
Okay, that's well put. That's well
So what I'm looking at there is what gets in our way, because everybody what am I struggling with? Why can't I create this change? What's getting in my way? That feeling of being stuck, we struggle with.
And that's something that a lot of people are, probably everybody, right? At some point.
Yes.
Or to some degree is stuck somewhere.
Somewhere.
Right? So
Well, and even when you get unstuck,
Yes.
as soon as you get back out there,
Something.
because we're almost encouraged to be stuck.
Right.
Do you, like,
by the Illuminati.
and others, including our own family and
Absolutely.
our work, and and of course the media, which I guess would be the Illuminati. But I mean, so it's really hard when you're getting unstuck because there's things that want to kind of keep you back, and you almost feel like you're not part of that anymore when you start. Do you find that happens with people?
Well, the thing is, in my work, I really move it towards the self, not what's outside of you, because we can't control all the things around us, but we really can control what's inside of us. And I know that's a cliche. People say it all the time without a real understanding of how that is actually occurring. And when people actually go inside and observe themselves through my work, they actually start to see exactly what's going on inside of them. And that's what they can take control over. And then how that's impacting their world. Now, I'm not saying that does not cancel out the very real, external world that we're existing in. However, when we get stuck in like you talk about being stuck, we can really get stuck in patterns of thoughts, emotions that as a result, they just become self-fulfilling prophecies. So if we believe we can't trust anyone, if we learn to be suspicious, then that's the lens through which we're going to see things. When we learn not to to see ourselves in negative terms, that's the lens through which we're going to see things, and that's going to then inform our reality. We're going to project that everywhere. We're going to see things in that way. So in my work, I do create the power, develop the power where we really can have control, which is over what's going on inside of us. And that's really, really the hardest thing to do, because to actually step back and observe ourselves and to be aware of what's our emotions and our thoughts. But that is so empowering at the same time. And it really does impact then how we exist in the world, how we respond to the world, and then actually how we move through the world. And I've seen so many people, as they free themselves emotionally and mentally, then it does free them in their lives. Their lives, external lives change, opportunities come, because they're not stuck in this kind of self-narrative, personal narrative. And I say that with caution only because I don't want any viewer out there to be thinking blaming themselves. I'm always a little cautious because I deal with the blaming mind and the critical mind so commonly that you don't really want to get into thinking, oh, I'm the problem. I'm saying if you want change, that's really where you can start, and it can be really empowering and effective.
So although it sounds like almost everybody could benefit from the work that you do, but who really, who's going, what are, who are the people that should really come and see you or consider getting in touch?
Right. Great question. And I do get people from all across the board, and you're right. And I mean, of course I'm biased. Of course I'm going to say everybody could benefit, but it's not for everyone. And I totally respect that. I think that that's true. I think that, so really, I am like a GP, so to speak. I deal with everyone. I deal with, all kind of different relationship problems, anxieties, fears. And that's the beauty and the privilege that I have as well, because it gives me a broad scope. Anyone struggling who wants to be liberated from what it is that they're struggling with, that we don't have to keep struggling. There is within us that we can actualize, we can find within ourselves what it is that we're seeking. My work really is about yourself, going in your relationship with yourself, developing parts of yourself, because you talked about the world and things around us, and it's true. If this is all you've ever experienced, let's say for instance you've been criticized all your life, that's the only world you're going to know. You're going to then criticize yourself. You're going to be we tend to move in towards the world that we know rather than away from it. A lot of us repeat the world that we know because it's comfortable, and that's what I hear everyone say.
And we don't know we have a choice, honestly.
No, we don't, and we don't because we're comfortable in it. People will say, well, I'm in this particular relationship because it's all I know and I'm comfortable. If I feel like a loser, I don't want to be with someone who is really succeeding because I'm going to feel more like a loser. So I'm going to want to be with someone who is equally struggling. So as a result, you're drawn to where that comfort zone is because it's threatening outside of that. So you can't get unstuck because it's threatening to the unknown world. Even when it's positive, it's threatening. We tend to protect the world we know.
And I think that's where the saying, the better the devil you know, comes from.
Absolutely. And so what I try to do in my work, and what I do, that's what the work does, is create that from inside. So instead of always looking outside, we tend to think the world is the problem. This is happening, that's happening. And so instead, it's like understanding these are my emotions, my thoughts, and being so much more aware of how we are projecting and how the world is triggering us rather than us blaming the world, and then dealing with those triggers, and then liberating ourselves from being stuck in our known world. So if we only know anxiety, we're gonna keep feeding that storyline and that narrative, and we can liberate ourselves by understanding, say, calm inside of us. If we only think of ourselves in negative terms, once we start to develop inside of us and see ourselves in a wholly different light, then we can liberate ourselves from that. But what I do in the work is have people find that inside themselves.
Yeah.
So they actually develop this emotional and mental muscle, so to speak. So if you don't know your self-worth, it's a theory until you start to really feel it. Not think it. You can't just like, oh, I love myself, but inside you really, self-talk is all, and you know, knocking yourself down and you're beating yourself up and you're not dealing with that. So it's really about cultivating that whole new feeling state. You feel something and you perceive another understanding of yourself, and then you walk with that into the world. And it changes how you function. It changes your relationships. It changes what you move towards. So you talked about the law of attraction. In my work, I construct it more in terms of what we choose to move towards, which is more empowering. I move towards this because I now understand that I'm worth this.
Right.
And if I think I'm worth nothing, I move towards relationships that are very unhealthy. So if I'm in a room with a whole bunch of people and I don't know my worth, and someone comes over to me who is like, positive, I might not feel as comfortable as I would if someone, and I'm more drawn to something else. So it's more that what you learn to be drawn towards.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yes.
if somebody is listening to this and
Yes.
they're resonating and they go, yeah, I got to go see that Dr. Nicola Bird, like, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, they can find me on my website, www.drnicolabird.com, or just nicolabird.com as well, www.nicolabird.com. And they can email me at nicola@drnicolabird.com. That's DRNICOLABIRD. It's just like birds that fly.
Because that's what you help people to do.
That's right. People
They
ask
f-
me if I've made up my name, but no.
Okay, and of course, people can also get their hands on the book. I'm assuming on their website there's links where
There are
people
links
can-
to it. You can find it on Amazon.
Okay, Amazon too. So the Boomerang Effect, how you can take charge of your life. So thank you, Dr. Nicola Bird.
Thank you for
coming on
having
the
me.
show.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Actually, and we have that video now. This is like that video from your website where you're talking about what self-imaging therapy is. So we're going
Yes.
to watch this, give people a good taste of that, and we're going to come back with, I think Kyla Dixon-Muir is coming on right after this. We'll be right back.
What makes self-imaging therapy so unique is that it's deeply experiential. And I think anything that we do that is not in theory but in practice, we really embody it, and it's a very deep learning and a very deep healing.
Delve in right to the problem, the core problem, and it actually goes right to the issue, and it's dealt with a lot quicker than traditional therapy. I'd say what I do a month here is a year in traditional therapy.
That Nicola's therapy is the missing link. Within each session, I actually located a block that had been, I guess, inhibiting me in some way that I wasn't aware of. And not only did I look at it, I could actually resolve it. And I could see the results in my life immediately.
It's sort of like taking the talk therapy to the next level. Really connect with the deep down feelings that when you just do talk therapy, it's too easy to skirt around.
Gave me the experience of going deeper and actually helping myself on a real level, not just in my head.
I integrate all the different parts of me into a more loving connection. It's incredibly freeing and so powerful.
You can alter within the therapy that it just helps to move things through you, through me anyways. It's helped me move things through me and just lighten the load in a very literal sense.
I can't believe the shifts and the transformations that I've been able to make. Things that I just never thought I'd be able to do in my life, I'm doing them, and I have so much more courage, resilience, and whereas before in my life I was always looking outside of myself for everything, like outside of myself for validation, outside of myself for comfort, for love. I've learned to love myself, I've learned to take care of myself, feel more at home in my own skin. And so more and more I feel that no matter where I am, I'm at home.
It's been hugely helpful. I mean, it's given me a lot of power in my personal life and in my work life. I have a successful business, which I really don't believe I could have had without this kind of work. And it just has made me a much happier person.
Stronger, more confident, more able, more self-confident, self-loving person. I have the tools to be able to keep working whenever I feel that I'm coming up against an obstacle, and I know that I'm able to solve my problems and stay on track.
It has changed my life. Well, I'm phenomenally more healthy. I care for myself much more deeply.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nicola Bird. I am the founder of Self-Imaging Therapy, a psychotherapist and a speaker, and welcome to my website. I created and developed self-imaging therapy to help people transform their lives from the inside out, creating the kind of changes that they want for themselves. This site is not just information-based, it is also interactive. You can download information, check out videos, even send me your questions. It is regularly updated, so you can come back and check me out anytime. Thank you so much for visiting the site. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Well, the really big difference is that before I was always talking about what was wrong. And so it was like my life became more about what the problem was. And I was also completely disconnected from my body and my feelings. I was just like a yapping head. And nothing ever seemed to change very much. And in this work, I find that the inner work leads to outer changes. Changes in my relationships, changes in my work.
Traditional therapy where you kind of like sat on a chair and intellectually had a clear idea of what was going on inside of you, but it never really shifted anything in an emotional and very deep level. And you kind of have to do that to really shift who you are, and then just, and then find more power.
I cannot recommend more highly working with Nicola, as I think that she really helps heal and address your body, mind, and soul, and basically your whole life will be transformed.